Chapter VIII of the Book of Camping and Woodcraft, a guidebook for those who travel in the wilderness. Recording by John Leader, Bloomington, Illinois. The Book of Camping and Woodcraft, a guidebook for those who travel in the wilderness, by Horace Kephart. Chapter VIII. The Campfire. I am a woodland fellow, sir, that always loved a great fire. All's well that ends well. Cold night weighs down the forest bough, strange shapes go flitting through the gloom. But see, a spark, a flame, and now the wilderness is home. Edwin L. Sabin. The forest floor is always littered with old leaves, dead sticks, and fallen trees. During a drought this rubbish is so tinder dry that a spark falling in it may start a conflagration. But through a great part of the year the leaves and sticks that lie flat on the ground are too moist, at least on their underside, to ignite readily. If we rake together a pile of leaves, cover it, higgledy-piggledy, with dead twigs and branches picked up at random, and set a match to it, the odds are that it will result in nothing but a quick blaze that soon dies down to a smudge. Yet that is the way most of us tried to make our first outdoor fires. One glance at a camper's fire tells what kind of a woodsman he is. If one would have good meals cooked out of doors, and would save much time and vexation, in other words, if he wants to be comfortable in the woods, he must learn how to produce at will either, 1. A quick, hot little fire that will boil water in a jiffy and will soon burn down to embers that are not too ardent for frying, or 2. A solid bed of long-lived coals that will keep up a steady, glowing, smokeless heat for baking, roasting, or slow boiling, or 3. A big log fire that will throw its heat forward on the ground and into a tent or lean-to, and will last several hours without replenishing. These arts are not so simple as they look. To practice them successfully in all sorts of wild regions, we must know the different species of trees one from another, and their relative fuel values, which, as we shall see, vary a great deal. We must know how well or ill each of them burns in a green state, as well as when seasoned. It is important to discriminate between wood that makes lasting coals and such as soon dies down to ashes. Some kinds of wood pop violently when burning and cast out embers that may burn holes in tents and bedding or set the neighborhood afire. Others burn quietly, with clear, steady flame. Some are stubborn to split, others almost fall apart under the axe. In wet weather it takes a practiced woodsman to find tinder and dry wood, and to select a natural shelter where fire can be kept going during a storm of rain or snow, when a fire is most needed. There are several handy little manuals by which one who has no botanical knowledge can soon learn how to identify the different species of trees by merely examining their leaves, or, late in the season, by their bark, buds, and habit of growth. But no book gives the other information that I have referred to, so I shall offer, in the present chapter, a little rudimentary instruction in this important branch of woodcraft. It is convenient for our purpose to divide the trees into two great groups, hardwoods and softwoods, using these terms not so loosely as lumbermen do, but drawing the line between sycamore, yellow birch, yellow pine, and slippery elm on the one side, and red cedar, sassafras, pitch pine, and white birch on the other. As a general rule, hardwoods make good, slow-burning fuel that yields lasting coals, and softwoods make a quick hot fire that is soon spent. But each species has peculiarities that deserve close attention. The knack of finding what we want in the woods lies a good deal in knowing what we don't want, and passing it by at a glance. The following woods will scarcely burn at all when they are green: aspen, large-toothed, black ash, balsam, box elder, buckeye, pitch pine, sassafras, sour wood, sycamore, tamarack, tupelo sour gum, water oak, poplar, tulip, serviceberry. Butternut, chestnut, red oak, red maple, and persimmon burn very slowly in a green state. Such woods are good for backlogs, hand junks, or andirons, and for side logs in a cooking fire that is to be used continuously. Yellow birch and white ash, on the contrary, are better for a camp fire when green than when they are seasoned. It may be said in general that green wood burns best in winter, when the sap is down. Trees that grow on high, dry ground burn better than those of the same species that stand in moist soil. Chestnut cut on the summits of the southern Appalachians burns freely, even when green, and the mountain beech burns as ardently as birch. Arbor vitae, northern white cedar, and chestnut burn to dead coals that do not communicate flame. They, as well as box elder, red cedar, hemlock, sassafras, tulip, balsam, tamarack, and spruce, make a great crackling and snapping in the fire. All of the soft pines, too, are prone to pop. Certain hardwoods, such as sugar maple, beech, white oak, and sometimes hickory, must be watched for a time after the fire is started, because the embers that they shoot out are long-lived, and hence more dangerous than those of softwoods. But they are splendid fuel for all that. Split logs are more likely to snap from the outside than from the inside, and should be laid with the heart side out. Woods that are hard to split are enumerated in the chapter on axemanship. It should be noted, however, that some woods which are very stubborn when seasoned are easily split while green, such as hickory, beech, dogwood, sugar maple, birch, slippery elm. Best of all firewoods is hickory, green or dry. It makes a hot fire, but lasts a long time, burning down to a bed of hard coals that keep up an even, generous heat for hours. Hickory, by the way, is distinctly an American tree. No other region on earth produces it. Following the hickory, in fuel value, are the chestnut oak, overcup, post, and basket oaks, pecan, the hornbeams, ironwoods, and dogwood. The latter burns finally to a beautiful white ash that is characteristic. Applewood does the same. Black birch also ranks here. It has the advantage of "doing its own blowing," as a Carolina mountaineer said to me the other day, meaning that the oil in the birch assists its combustion so that the wood needs no coaxing. All of the birches are good fuel, ranking in about this order: black, yellow, red, paper, and white. Sugar maple was the favorite fuel of our old-time hunters and surveyors, because it ignites easily, burns with a clear, steady flame, and leaves good coals. But it is too valuable a tree nowadays to be cast into the fire, save where a hopelessly defective one is found. Locust is a good, lasting fuel. It is easy to cut and, when green, splits fairly well. The thick bark takes fire readily, and the wood then burns slowly, with little flame, leaving pretty good coals. Hence it is good for nightwood. Mulberry has similar qualities. The best of the oaks for fuel, especially when green, is white oak. It also splits very readily. The scarlet and willow oaks are among the poorest of the hardwoods for fuel. Cherry makes only fair fuel. White elm is poor stuff, but slippery elm is better. In some respects, white ash is the best of greenwoods for campers' fuel. It is easily cut and split, is lighter to tote than most other hardwoods, and is of so dry a nature that even the greenwood catches fire readily. It burns with clear flame, and lasts longer than any other free-burning wood of its weight. Most of the softwoods are good only for kindling, or for quick cooking fires. Liquid amber, magnolia, poplar, tulip, Catalpa, red cedar, and willow are poor fuel. Seasoned chestnut and tulip split easily and make a hot fire, but crackle and leave no coals. Balsam fir, basswood, and the white and loblolly pines make quick fires but are soon spent. The gray (Labrador) pine is considered good fuel in the far north, where hardwoods are scarce. Seasoned tamarack is fairly good. Spruce is poor fuel, although, being resinous, it kindles easily and makes a good blaze for "branding up" a fire. Sycamore and buckeye, when thoroughly seasoned, are good fuel but hard to split. Alder burns readily and gives out considerable heat, but is not lasting. The wood of the large-toothed aspen will not burn in a green state, but when dry it burns freely, does not crackle, lasts well, and leaves good coals. The best green softwoods for fuel are white birch, paper birch, soft maple, cottonwood, and quaking aspen. For a cooking fire that will burn quickly to coals, without smoke, the bark of dead hemlock, hickory, pine, or sugar maple cannot be excelled. As a rule, the timber growing along the margins of large streams is softwood. Hence, driftwood is generally a poor mainstay for an all-night fire, unless there is plenty of it on the spot. Besides kindling and the firewood proper, one often needs some kind of tinder to start a fire. The bark of all species of birch is excellent for this purpose, as well as for torches. It is full of resinous oil, blazes up at once, will burn in any wind, and wet sticks can be kindled with it. The shredded inner bark of dead cedar or cottonwood burns like paper. Tinder will not be needed if pine knots or splits of dry pine or cedar can be procured. Pine knots are the heavy resinous stubs of limbs that are found on dead pine trees. They are almost imperishable, and those sticking out from old rotten logs are as good as any. Pitch pine affords the best knots. The knots of balsam fir are similarly used, but hemlock knots are worthless. A good way to start a fire is to take 3 such knots, whittle some shavings from their less resinous small ends without detaching the shavings, set the knots up as a tripod, butts together, small ends down, and shavings touching, then light the latter. Splits from a pine stump that has been burned on the outside are fat with resin. A stump may often be found that has rotted nearly to the ground, but has a sound, dry core from which good kindling can be split. In a hardwood forest, the best kindling, sure to be dry underneath the bark in all weathers, is procured by snapping off the small dead branches or stubs of branches that are left on the trunks of medium-sized trees. Do not pick up twigs from the ground, but choose those, among the downwood, that are held up free from the ground. Where a tree is found that has been shivered by lightning, or one that has broken off without uprooting, good splinters of dry wood will be found. In every laurel thicket there is plenty of dead laurel, and, since it is of sprangling growth, most of the branches will be free from the ground and snap dry. They ignite readily and give out intense heat. It is a good test of one's resourcefulness to make a fire out of doors in rainy weather. The best way to go about it depends on local conditions. Dry fuel, and a place to build the fire, can often be found under big up-tilted logs, shelving rocks, and similar natural shelters, or in the core of an old stump. In default of these, look for a dead softwood tree that leans to the south. The wood and bark on the under side will be dry. Chop some off, split it fine, and build your fire under the shelter of the trunk, if you want to use it for only a short time. If it is necessary to camp in the rain without artificial shelter, and no rocky ledge can be found, pick out a big green tree, the larger the better, that leans a good deal. Be sure that it is big enough not to be weakened by an all-night fire. If the rain is driving, and you have a blanket, lean a couple of saplings against the tree and spread your blanket over them to shelter the fire until it is well started, or lean large sticks or splits against the tree in the shape of half a cone, leaving a cavity at the base in which you can insert kindling. Face the wind. Cup your hands, backs toward wind, match held with its head pointing toward rear of cup, i.e., toward the wind. Remove right hand just long enough to strike match on something very close by, then instantly resume former position. Flame of match will run up the stick instead of blowing away from it. Fire may be made without matches by drawing the bullet or shot from a cartridge, pouring out all but about 1/4 of the charge, putting the cartridge in the gun, muzzle up, and loosely ramming down a piece of dry cotton cloth upon it. Fire the gun either toward the ground or straight up into the air. It will ignite the rag. One should have some punk or tinder by him at the time. Punk is of two kinds. 1. Dry fungus, such as the shelf-like toadstools (Polyphori) that grow on the boles of trees oak, maple, birch, beech, locust especially. Not the hard, woody fungi, but those that are soft and leathery. Also dried puffballs. 2. Wood that is decayed from a fungus growth. Concassy, dozed, or doughty wood, it is called by timbermen, such as is often found in dead trees or stumps, or under the excrescences of growing maples, birches, and other trees. Green toadstools can soon be dried out before the fire. The inner part of such a fungus, as well as dozed wood, will ignite readily from a spark, but does not flame, and will carry fire for hours. It makes a very good smudge to drive away mosquitoes. Extemporized tinder is quickly made by tearing, not cutting, a strip of cotton cloth, leaving the edges fluffy, and rolling it up like a roller bandage, leaving one end projecting a little. Into this end rub crushed gunpowder, leaving a few grains uncrushed, or the ashes of a cigar will do. The ashes of tobacco, Indian corn, sunflower, and some other plants contain enough saltpeter to make good touch paper by rubbing them into cloth or soft paper. Dry dung, especially horse dung, when broken up, takes a spark readily, and so do dried moss and dried willow catkins. Sparks may be struck from flint, quartz, or pyrites, by striking them a glancing blow with the back of a knife or other piece of hard steel. It takes more skill to catch the spark than to produce it. When the sun shines, the lens of a camera, field glass, or telescope sight may be used as a burning glass. Even a watch crystal, removed and 3/4 filled with water, forms a lens that, if held very steadily, will ignite punk or tinder. To make a fire burn well, there is one thing even more necessary than kindling or firewood, and that is air. It is from neglecting this invisible factor that most novices fail. The fuel must not be tumbled together. It must be built systematically, so that air can draw under it and upward through it, even after the tinder and small kindling have burned up. The latter should never be used to support the larger sticks. The best way to make a fire quickly, and one that is sure to keep on burning as long as it is fed, is, first to lay 2 good-sized sticks on the ground as a foundation. Then, across them, at right angles, lay a course of dry twigs or splinters, not quite touching each other. On these, at one side, place your tinder of paper, bark, or whatever it may be. Then on top of this put 2 other cross sticks, smaller than the bed sticks. Over this, a cross layer of larger twigs, and so on, building the pile, cob house style, and gradually increasing the size of the sticks. Such a pile will roar within half a minute after a match is touched to it, and if the upper courses are of split hickory, or other good hardwood, it will all burn down to live coals together. In cold weather, when the campfire is depended upon to keep the men warm all night, it should be built higher than the general level of the camp. First, because you will get more heat from a fire built somewhat higher than your bed, and second, because unless it is built upon a rock, or hard, naked earth, it will eat its way down in the forest refuse. There are 11 ways of building a campfire, but only 3 of them are basic and orthodox. The others are mere variants, or schisms, from the true faith. The 3 are: 1. The hunter's fire; 2. The trapper's fire; and 3. The Indian's fire. This is how to build them. The hunter's fire. Best for a shifting camp, because it affords, first, a quick cooking fire with proper supports for the utensils, and afterward a good camp fire for the night when the weather is not severe. Select a tree not less than a foot thick at the butt, ash or softwood if you have not a full-sized axe. Fell it, and cut from the butt end 2 logs about 6 feet long. Lay these side by side, about 15 inches apart at one end and 6 or 8 inches at the other. Lay a course of small dry sticks across the middle of them, and on this place your tinder. At each end of this course lay a green hand junk, about 8 inches thick, to support the larger wood. Across them, parallel with the bed logs, lay dry sticks, and on them build a cob house of short, split wood that will make coals. Fill in with small kindling around the tinder and touch it off. The upper courses of wood will soon burn to coals, which will drop between the logs and set them to blazing on the inner side. After supper, nightwood is piled on top of the junks. In the morning there will be fine coals with which to cook breakfast. The trapper's fire. Best for a fixed camp in cold weather, before a lean-to or shanty tent. If there is no big boulder or ledge of rocks on the camp site, build a wall of rocks about 6 feet in front of the lean-to, with 2 stone andirons, at right angles to them. Or drive 2 big stakes in the ground, slanting backward. Against them pile on top of each other 3 logs at least a foot thick, and place 2 thick, short hand junks in front of them to support the forestick. Select for this purpose greenwood that is hard to burn. Plaster mud in the crevices between the logs, around the bottom of stakes, and around the rear end of hand junks, for otherwise the fire will quickly attack these places. Such a fireplace is meant to reflect the heat forward, conduct the smoke upward, and serve as a windbreak in front of a camp. Build the fire between the hand junks, and cut plenty of 6-foot logs for nightwood. Have a separate cooking fire off to one side. The Indian's fire. Best where fuel is scarce, or when one has only a small hatchet with which to cut nightwood. Fell and trim a lot of hardwood saplings. Lay 3 or 4 of them on the ground, butts on top of each other, tips radiating from this center like the spokes of a wheel. On and around this center build a small hot fire. Place butts of other saplings on this, radiating like the others. As the wood burns away, shove the sticks in toward the center, butts on top of each other as before. This saves much chopping and economizes fuel. Build a little windbreak behind you, and lie close to the fire. Doubtless you have heard the Indian's dictum. Southern Indians express it just as the Northern and Western ones do. White man heap full, make 'em big fire, can't get near. Injun make 'em little fire, get close, good. Fires built especially for purposes of cookery will be described hereafter. Chapter 8